on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 8:37 on O'Connor and Company. It's Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka. Patrice, we've been waiting for the Harris campaign to actually put forth one major policy initiative to clearly, in detail, articulate what they intend to do should they win the election 80 days from now. And we got it. Today, we'll hear this announcement of an economic initiative. And here's how the Washington Post, a column in the Washington Post this morning, describes it. It's hard to exaggerate how bad this policy is. It is, in all but name, a sweeping set of government-enforced price controls across every industry, not only food. Supply and demand would no longer determine prices or profit levels. Far off Washington bureaucrats would. The FTC would be able to tell, say, a Kroger in Ohio, the acceptable price it can charge for milk. At best, this would lead to shortages, black markets, and hoarding, among other distortions seen previous times. Countries tried to limit price growth by fiat. There's a reason narrower price gouging laws that exist in some U.S. states are rarely invoked. At worst, it might accidentally raise prices. That, by the way, from Catherine Rampel, if you look at her byline, hardly a fan of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And that's her analysis. Bret Baier joins us now, anchor, of course, the special report at Fox News Channel. And Bret, we've been waiting for some policy, and now we've got it. It makes this election that much clearer, I think, if the economy is going to be a major focus.
Yeah, good morning. I think it's really interesting that her first economic policy is to the left of Joe Biden.
Yes.
I think it's that's the first one out of the gate. And, listen, President Nixon tried price controls. In fact, I used to cover the Pentagon, and Don Rumsfeld, as defense secretary, I talked to him about his previous life and different jobs, and he was in charge of price controls in the Nixon administration. He said it was the worst decision any president could make, and he was behind some of the efforts to make it work or try to, and it never did. It didn't work in the U.S. It hasn't worked in socialist countries. And I'm kind of surprised that it's being launched this way. The other one is a $25,000 credit on a down payment for a house. And, there's other people saying, well, surprisingly, also announced today, housing up $25,000.
Yes, exactly.
The cost of a house. Right?
Hey, the cost of my house just went up $25,000.
There you go.
Yeah, so I think, out of the box, we'll see how it's delivered, but it is a little surprising.
Well, Bret, next week is the Democratic National Convention. I presume you and your colleagues at Fox will be there covering it live. Is that right? And what are you
Sunday.
Okay, what are you expecting, both outside protest as well as inside the actual hall?
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I think that the protests are probably real and will materialize. I mean, we saw some things in New York already this week, and the anti-Israel crowd is going to be present. They've already filed for protest, permits and that sort of thing. And I think inside the hall is going to be an interesting, packaging and how it's rolled out. I don't think there's not one scheduled, a big interview before the convention starts. And that's going to be about, bringing forth this nominee in a different light than she was just a year ago. Many people in the Democratic Party, as you know, were talking about replacing Kamala Harris on the Biden-Harris ticket. So President Biden speaks Monday. That'll be fascinating. And then he gets off the stage, and the rest of the week is all about her.
Bret, it's been discussed, and of course, both Trump and Vance continue to harp on the fact that Kamala Harris, up until this point, has still not actually given a press conference or sat for an interview. Neither has Tim Walz. Frankly, Joe Biden, other than the one exchange with Robert Costa of CBS News, which was hardly a probing interview, if I may say, it is remarkable considering the earthquake, the political earthquake that took place just 3 weeks ago. Never in our history has this sort of thing happened before. And it's one thing for the candidates to complain about and point out the fact that they have not actually have to answer a serious question about what transpired here. I'm shocked that there aren't more members of your community who are sort of going along with this. If I may coin a phrase, where's the outrage, Bob Dole?
No. I mean, I agree. We don't know what happened between Saturday and Sunday when President Biden was going to be the nominee 100%. 14.5 million Democrats voted for him. It was done. He's not leaving. And then Sunday, you know what? I'm going to put out a letter on X
but
and say
it's not like
gone.
This is a story about his dog biting Secret Service agents, which they also haven't answered questions about. But this is kind of a big deal, Bret.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's on the scale of an attempted assassination attempt, where we don't have any information about anything.
Yeah.
And I think that there are big stories here that have to be told. I also think, I had Nikki Haley on the show this week, and she said, "Listen, stop whining about press conferences and interviews. Just use the words that she said." And use those again and again and again on policy. And she really wanted to get a message, I think, to the former president, who accepted it yesterday in his press conference, saying he would like to welcome her to campaign with him around the country.
Yeah.
If I could quickly follow up, that was I think an important interview, and it's the first. We know that that Ambassador Haley came out and supported Donald Trump at the convention, but that was when Joe Biden was still the candidate. Did you get a sense from Ambassador Haley in that interview that the fact that Kamala Harris is now the nominee and Tim Walz, fairly one of the more left-wing governors in the country, if not the most left-wing governor in the country, Gavin Newsom aside, that the stakes are raised here for Nikki Haley and potentially for those sort of Trump skeptical holdouts that may still be sort of on the fence?
Yeah, and I think she feels an obligation to get that word out to that crowd. She was very forceful on a number of different points about, she, at the end of that presidential race, was saying time and again in almost every interview, I'm not running against President Biden, I'm running against Kamala Harris because she's going to be the nominee.
Yeah.
She was very prescient in that. And I think she's trying to say, this is the warning that I was giving, and this is why it's important.
All right, Bret, thank you. Listen, we will be tuning in to watch your coverage next week. Good luck. Have fun. Keep your head on a swivel,
Start
please.
Sunday.
I worry about Chicago. I do. So,
Thanks, Bret.
Yeah, we will. All right, we'll see you.
It is 8:44.